Good evening, good afternoon, whenever you listen to this. I am Gary Mack, and he is Rich Baxter, and we
Hello.
are the Baseball Talk Radio Show. And Rich, another week, no baseball, but what are you going to do? We got a great guest on. We'll get to him in a few minutes.
Yes, good generic time of the day to you, Gary. Yep, we're going to be talking some great baseball again on the Baseball Talk Radio Show. We got some updated information. We're getting closer and closer to a time where we may see some baseball on television, if not in person. But yeah, it's been a quite an eventful week, hasn't it, Gary?
It certainly has. They've got a new plan. I don't know if I'm crazy about it, Rich. I got to be honest. I don't like the idea of mixing all of the divisions together, such as they are. I think this is their master plan for the future. I'm very suspicious of it because, they've talked about doing something like this for years, and here they are taking this pandemic to go ahead and do this, and so I'm a little suspicious of that. And of course they'll use the DH for the, they'll say, well, we have to for 1 year, but you know how those things work. Very rarely does it go back after the 1 year, so I'm just afraid that if they do this geographically the way they want to do it, that they'll go back eventually to the old National League and the American League. And I don't like the idea of just one MLB.
Yeah, there's an article in the nationalreview.com this morning. Don't kill the National League.
Yeah.
Like you said, we're hearing now more and more. Nothing's been officially announced, but possibly a 100-game season starting in late June. Teams playing at their own home ballparks rather than having a concentrated area down in Florida or Arizona. And that sort of makes sense as well. The league realigning into a few different divisions. It's going to be strange if it happens that way. I'm not so sure I'm on board with it. I mean, we'll have to do what we have to do, but it's going to be baseball apparently.
Yeah, and Rich, this also sets them up for what they want to do with expansion. They can, if they perceive that this works out, they're going to try to expand to 2 more cities and then probably go to 4 divisions with 8 teams in it. And that'll be baseball as we know it, I guess, going forward. But that's a conversation for another day, I guess. But I'm just not crazy. It just makes it so much harder, the divisions that we would be in, especially the Phillies and the Mets. And we're Philly and Met fans, so we're concerned about that. And we'd be stuck with the Yankees and the Red Sox and Tampa, which can't outspend us, but they've got a pretty good team. And Boston and the Yankees like to spend that money. I don't know. I'm kind of leery about the whole situation.
Yeah, it's a 3-division realignment combination of the whole league. The Yankees, Mets, Red Sox, Nationals, Orioles, Phillies, Pirates, Blue Jays, Rays, and the Marlins in one group. Out west, the Dodgers, Angels, Giants, Athletics, Padres, Diamondbacks, Rockies, Rangers, Astros, and Mariners. Then in the Central, the Cubs, the White Sox, Brewers, Cardinals, Royals, Reds, Indians, Twins, and Tigers. So geographically aligned, but as you said, I'm not interested in facing the Yankees every 5th day or 8th day or 10th day, whatever the schedule happens to read, or the Red Sox for that matter. But like I said, we may not have a choice.
I think you're right, Rich. I think you were right, and we'll have to see how it all plays out. This is the 3rd or 4th plan that they've come up with. This is probably the most viable and the one they've pushed along the most.
Yeah, and granted, if you're a baseball fan, maybe this is an opportunity for you as well. You'll be seeing a lot of players that you may not get a chance to see. I mean, how many people actually travel, want to go to Yankee Stadium, check out a game? It's a couple negatives about that. It's very expensive. It's somewhat difficult to get to for some people. So, maybe this is an opportunity for baseball fans to see some of the best players in the game in the Eastern League and throughout the whole league for that matter. So 100 games sounds a bit ambitious to me at this point, especially starting the end of June. But I guess that sort of sits right if we look at the way the All-Star game breaks out.
Well, they'll probably skip right through that, and then they're going to probably talk about a different playoff format as well. So they'll have to see. Who knows? Maybe they'll end up playing that in Florida and Texas, and that might be a way of doing that as far as the playoffs go. If it gets, the World Series could be at a neutral site. Maybe in Miami, maybe in the new ballpark in Texas, something like that. They could always do that if they wished. I guess we'll just see what happens, and we sit and wait.
Yeah. Each day brings a new set of news, new set of possibilities for the MLB. And believe it or not, we have a great guest on board with us today. All the way down from Florida, Mr. Lou Schiff from on Twitter, hashtag baseball and the law. How you doing today, Lou?
I'm good. How you guys doing? Rich, Gary, good
Awesome.
to be on with
Awesome.
you guys this afternoon or this morning or at night, whenever anybody's listening in.
We're very good, Lou. Thanks for coming on today.
I lost track of days. Honest to goodness. I for some reason I was in the office earlier today, and I thought today was Monday. And obviously we're recording on a Wednesday, but for some reason, for a little bit, I thought somehow today was Monday. But it's a new normal.
Yeah, I've sent out some tweets on some days, and good morning, it's Tuesday, and I had to check my computer and I look, it's only Monday.
Only Monday,
So,
yeah.
have to go back and fix it. But Lou is an esteemed baseball research, just one of the hats that he wears, and author and book author of a wonderful baseball book that won an award in 2017 with the SABR Baseball Award, and that one is called Baseball and the Law, Cases and Materials. And could you tell our listeners here at Baseball Talk Radio podcast a little about the book?
The book became a labor of love. It's a story about the legal issues and the other moral and societal issues that face Major League Baseball and how baseball has dealt with them since the beginning. We've divided it up into different chapters. A usual textbook usually doesn't divide it up the way we did it, but we divided the book up into sections that fans could really appreciate. It's the kind of book that you don't have to be a lawyer to enjoy it. You could be a baseball fan and researcher. So we go through and we do an introduction to the game, and then we do a section on the baseball commissioners, and we talk about teams. And then in another chapter, we talk about stadiums. Then we move on to the players themselves. We have a chapter devoted to fans. And then we end the book with a chapter devoted to amateur baseball. And so it's a nice read. It's a lot of reading. It's a little over 1,000 pages, but the book does have pictures. It was intended for law students. It's been adopted by law schools throughout the United States, including the school where I am an adjunct, which is Mitchell Hamlin in St. Paul, Minnesota. My co-author, Bob Jarvis, he's an adjunct right down here in Fort Lauderdale at Nova Southeastern. And so we've taught the class for a number of years, going back even before the book was written. And every day I put out a tweet on, as you said, baseball and the law, or the way the tweet handle is at baseball and the two. And every day I try to give you a little insight into the legal issues of baseball and how they really intersect with everyday life. So, for example, we're talking here on a Wednesday, and today, believe it or not, is the 5th anniversary of the game that was played in Baltimore without any fans because of the Baltimore riots that occurred. And that was a game where the stadium was locked down. Only the players were there. There were some reporters and stadium workers. That was it. And they played a ball game. So that's a tragic anniversary because of what happened in Baltimore 5 years ago. But we talked about that. We also talked yesterday about the exploding. Was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? We talked about an exploding scoreboard at Comiskey, and Bill Veeck has invented so many things in baseball, but one of the things he brought to us in baseball are the modern exploding scoreboards, and they didn't come into existence until 1960. And so we commemorated that, and we had a little interview that we found and we put up for fans to look at. And these are the kinds of things that are also in the book.
That's awesome. And as you said, it is more so a textbook at over 1,000 pages, a lot of photographs in there and things like that. And there's plenty of opportunities to discuss law and baseball. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you today is something that I just read in the news. Apparently it's close to some sort of reconciliation, is the fan ticket refunds that they haven't been able to get yet. And we're at the end of April, and baseball is still holding on to that money.
So last week, Craig Calaterra did a little article about the lawsuits that were being filed, and on the heels of that, we ran a poll where we had almost 600 people, and the question was, fans are suing Major League Baseball and StubHub and other third parties, including the teams, for refunds on unplayed games. And so the question was, if you were the judge, how would you rule? And 86% of the responders said that they would order that the teams have to refund their money right away, which means, let's flash forward to yesterday. And yesterday, Major League Baseball announced, and there was an article that was in ESPN, that they're going to start making refunds. Teams are supposed to start announcing today a way to offer refunds for games lost due to the coronavirus. So, yes, baseball was sued. The courts are probably not going to have to make a decision on that if the teams refund the money the way they would refund the money, perhaps at a rainout or something like that. People want their money back at this point.
And Lou, they're talking about opening up, but a lot of these states that the teams are placed in are still not opening themselves up. What kind of problems could they possibly run into with the different governments, state governments, before they could possibly open up?
Well, I think you've just mentioned it. Obviously, they're going to have to be cleared by whatever state that they're in that they can even play baseball. Mm-hmm. And then once they're cleared that they can even play baseball, there needs to be a protocol set up for the safety of first the players. And then once you establish that, then the question is, you guys were talking before about the new structure that could be, but there may be empty stadiums. I read an article today, and I forgot where. It may have been in the Athletic. It may have been in the National. But what happened in Baltimore 5 years ago, people are looking towards to see how to run ball games without anybody in the stands. Are you going to have the organist there? Are they going to be going dum bum 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 bum? Players are used to hearing that. Are you going to have an announcer saying now batting? Are you going to? What's going to happen? Obviously, you won't have kiss cam in between innings, and then the game may move a little bit faster. But the ball players like some of that stuff. So what's going to be taken? Is there going to be any walk-up music anymore? Or is it just going to be like I'm going to a high school baseball game or even a little league baseball game, and they're people, and no one's announcing who's coming up, and the guy gets up, the girl gets up, they hit the ball, and then the next team comes up. Don't know. We have to be really careful about fan safety. and we may see baseball played, and we may not get to go to any games this year.
Absolutely, yeah. And it opens a whole can of worms. I know they're going to be testing the MLB players, but if there is a point in time this season when fans can come back to the ballpark, will the MLB have the right to test fans to get into the stadium area? That falls into a lot of different categories.
That's a great question. Baseball has a right to search people coming into a ballpark for safety. When they extend that and say, well, safety goes beyond just weapons. Safety goes to your health, and we don't want to endanger anyone else's health. You don't have a right to go to a baseball game. You buy a license to go to the game, and that license gives you the opportunity to go to a game and sit in your seats, and you're supposed to behave yourself while you're sitting there. And if the team feels that you've done something that has violated your license, they have the right to remove you from the stadium. So it's not as if you're walking into a public place, although some teams are played in ballparks owned by governments, such as Yankee Stadium, such as Marlins Park. They still have a right, I believe, to screen people for the safety of everybody. So we'll see what happens there. We don't have to worry as much down here about fans coming to games as you do up in New York with the Marlins. I've been a Marlins season ticket holder for a long time. I think there's 6 of us, or maybe 7 of us, but it's still going to be a concern.
You and the guy that sits behind home plate all the time.
No, my seats are along first base in the lower level in the first row. I share the seats with my brother, and we go and we enjoy games. Sometimes it's tough to find people to take to games, but I love baseball. It's just I like the way it unfolds. I like the way it works itself in. I like the way you can go to a game when there's a total stranger near you and you can talk. Unlike an NBA game or a hockey game or a football game, baseball is a more it's a game. It's a communal game. It's where people can enjoy each other, even if they're not the rooting for the same team. There's a commonality there. It doesn't seem to get to be like a football game where the Giants are playing the Jets, or the Jets are down here playing the Dolphins, and it gets crazy and out of control.
And Lou, continuing on with the inside the stadium, the big trend in the last few years was all the netting that they've put up because of people getting hurt. Legally, did they have to do that? Because there is a warning on every ticket to be aware. So were they, did they, legally have to do that, or was it just a measure of good faith?
Great question. So we go back over 100 years to a case out of Kansas City called Crane. And Crane was injured by a foul ball. And the courts in that case said, assumption of the risk, if you don't want to get hit by a ball, don't sit in an area where you can get hit by a ball, because there were some areas screened. Now, there's been a lot of times that was tested. Now we go up to today. Today's stadiums are built where the players and the fans are closer than they were. The old ballparks, for example, Shea Stadium, you were further away from the field than you are now, say, at Citi Field. People want to get closer. Players are faster, balls fly faster. People don't pay attention as much. They don't pay attention as much because we have exploding scoreboards. We have all kinds of distractions. We have dancing mascots. We are encouraged to bring our iPhones to game and check the stats of a specific ball player. We're encouraged to use our iPhones to watch a replay. So we're not always concentrating on the game, and this causes a distraction. There are no laws with any Major League Baseball teams that demand that they have netting. Now, some other cities have started enacting laws that require their teams to put up netting, and it's a result of good public relations. We want our fans to enjoy a game. Does it interfere A little bit. My seats used to be where there was no netting. Now there's netting, the same seats, but now there's netting. Does it affect the game? A little bit. It's sometimes hard to follow the ball off the bat right away, depending upon where it's being hit. But it's for fan safety, and that's what the name of the game is. Yes, Major League Baseball was afraid that they were going to lose some lawsuits. Major League Baseball probably was concerned that laws were going to be passed that were going to mandate them to do certain things. So they got in front of the story, and they came up with a solution to a problem.
And any cases that are in the courts that I believe, wasn't there some woman that got hurt in Boston, I believe it was? Wasn't she going to sue the Red Sox and Major League Baseball? Has that ever gone forward, and would she have any sort of case?
Boy, I can't tell you that. I don't know the facts on that case at all to even guess.
Yeah.
But one thing is true in the law, that remedial measures that are made after an injury are usually not held against the person who makes those remedial measures. You can't use the fact that in most cases, now they've extended the netting. See, you can't use that. Otherwise, people wouldn't extend the nettings. Or they fell down a flight of stairs and now they secured the banister. Well, we don't want anybody else getting hurt, and no one's admitting that they did wrong. But by securing the netting or tightening up a banister is just a safety issue. It can't be used against the person that's being sued.
Okay.
As a general rule.
Mm-hmm.
And Lou, you tweet out with hashtag baseball and the law. So I'd like to let our listeners know to follow you on Twitter.
Thank you.
And you do an awesome job on that. It's a really great thing that you do. What led up to getting started with that?
Baseball is the story. I had so I'm a member of SABR, and for your listeners, if you're a baseball fan, being a member of SABR is like breathing. You should be a member. The membership is not expensive, and the wealth of information that you get from SABR. And I've written a few articles for SABR. I've got a couple of articles that I've written for them that are in the can. They have them, and they're just waiting to publish them. And I'm working on another project or two. It's just a great source of pride for baseball fans. Great information, great research. Whatever you're looking for, it's there. So SABR is just a wonderful organization. And so I'm a member of the South Florida chapter of SABR. A little over a year ago, Art Shamsky was coming down to Florida to talk to folks in Coral Gables about his book, After the Miracle. Great book. It tells the tale of the 69 Mets, but it also tells a sad story about the aging of the ball players, specifically Tom Seaver. And he goes back and forth between today and back in 69, and it's a great book, and it's written by Art Shamsky and his co-author Eric Sherman. A wonderful book. And the president of our local SABR chapter knew that as a kid growing up, I was a huge Mets fan. And like I said to you before, if Art Shamsky and Ed Kranepool and Cleon Jones and Tommy Agee and Buddy Harrelson and all those guys, were still playing for the Mets, I'd be the world's biggest Mets fan. So he says to me, hey, listen, Art Shamsky's going to be down. We need someone to pick him up at the airport. Would you do it? And it's like, well, sure. How much do I have to pay you to do this? So I mean, really, I'm going to pick Art Shamsky up at an airport. Now I'm almost 65 years old, but that's like, I felt like I was 15 again. Really, I get to go out with Art Shamsky? Are you kidding me? This is like I've died and gone to heaven. This is a bucket list item in life. And so I pick him up, and we spend the morning together. We have breakfast, and then we go to lunch with a couple of other people. And at lunch, I meet Eric Sherman, his co-author, and he had seen my book, and he said to me, how come you don't have a Twitter page for your book? And I said, I don't know. He goes, you need to start a Twitter page for your book. And so that's where it came from. Art Shamsky and Eric Sherman encouraged me to open up the Twitter page, and that was a little over a year ago. And in 1 year, we've picked up a little bit more than 1,000 followers, which is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of relate. I also do a podcast on the Mets called Mets Musings, as everybody knows that listens to this show. And
Uh-huh.
I had the pleasure of having Art Shamsky on, and Eric. I've had Eric Sherman on a few times, and I had the pleasure of meeting both of them up here a couple of times. And Eric is really a nice guy, and as you say, that book is a terrific book, and it's not just a med book. It's I call it it's our generations. I'm a couple years older than you, but it's our generations to me, Boys of Summer. That's how good that book is, and the feelings that I had, it went through the whole range of emotions from joy to happiness to sadness to everything you could think of reading that book. And it's just a
Mm-hmm.
terrific book, and I recommend get it. But I had the pleasure of meeting Art Shamsky as well at a book signing, and actually hanging out in a bar with him for a while later.
Uh-huh. So
It's like
that's
you said,
incredible.
and also had the pleasure of meeting Ed Kranepool, and that was just unbelievable to me. He was getting rid of some memorabilia, for his to cover his medical bills. He had some health issues, and he was selling memorabilia. And a friend of mine called me and said, "Would you like to go to his house?" And I said, "Sure." And went to Ed Kranepool's house and walked down the basement, and there the man is sitting there, and I was like you said, I was like a 15-year-old kid all over again. Oh my God, that's Ed Kranepool sitting there. It was just unbelievable. We sat down and talked baseball. It was just it's just a wonderful thing, and I think that feeling of being a kid and a fan never really leaves you. I don't think.
Gary, I agree with you. Ed Kranepool was my favorite ball player growing up as a kid, and I'll save my Ed Kranepool story for another day with you guys on how I met him and how I was speechless and the whole thing. But I think we're in awe, and I think that, and I'm not saying that today's players, kids don't idolize the way we did, but my son is now 30, 31 years old. And when all this stuff, and he loved Mark McGwire growing up as a kid, and when all this stuff happened about McGwire, my son one day said to me, and my son was one of the reasons I wrote this book also, because of what he was doing in college at the time, and he encouraged me to do some baseball research and law research. But my son Eric says to me, this guy cheated. The guy I loved the best as a ball player, he was nothing but a cheat. And so his feeling about his favorite ball player and my feeling about my favorite ball player are so different.
Yeah, yeah.
And these guys, and I like your comparison to the Boys of Summer, because they were the Boys of Summer. I bet if I asked you, and I will ask you, so Gary, can you tell us where you were when the Mets won the World Series in 1969?
Yeah, I was in front of my television. I was in high school at the time, and it just so happened that week we were having I went to a private high school, and we were having some kind of fundraiser. And if you brought in money every day, different amounts of money, your homeroom would get to go home. And I can remember go in, and then people would say, okay, the homeroom teacher would say, okay, you're $20 short of going home at 12 o'clock, and we're all thinking, holy crap, the game is on at 1 or 2, whatever time it came on. And if took a subway to get there, so if it take me 45 minutes to an hour to get home, people were digging through their pockets, giving up lunch money, anything to try to get enough change to get that $20 so we could go home early. But I made it home that day. I remember it was a rush. I think I missed 2 batters in the first inning, and sat at home. I did not go to the to the stadium, but I do have a story that goes along with that if we have the time, and I've probably told this before. I went to school with a guy that was a huge Met fan as well, and his name was Kevin. I won't give his last name, but he was kind of a different looking guy. He had big Coke bottle glasses and everything, and he was a tall guy and loved the Mets, and he was not in school the day of Game 5. And we all knew where he was going. He went to his father said, I got tickets to the game. I'm taking you to the World Series game. You know, you can go to school the next day, but you may never have a chance to go to a World Series game. So he goes to the game. The next day he comes in, and it was a Catholic school that I went to, and you had to bring a note in to the brother. And you would hand the note to the brother, and then he would look at it, and he'd stamp it, or I forget whatever they would do, and they give you a pass to go to your homeroom. So that's how you got back into school. Well, he goes up, and he hands his note from his father, and the brother looks at him, and they used to be like, it almost looked like a bank, you know, a ticket window, like. And the brother looked to his left, shook his head, and said, No way. And he picks up a picture, the Daily News of the day. And smack dab in the middle of the Daily News, they took a picture from the stands of all the people on the field. And smack dab in the middle of that picture was this guy, Kevin. So it caused a bit of a hullabaloo. His father had to come to school and get him out of trouble and everything. And the father took full responsibility. He said, look, he may never go to another World Series game. And as we know as Met fans, they are few and far between. So,
great story.
But that's the story with that. Now, in '86, I was there at Game 7. So that I was
there in Game 6.
No, I was not. I had tickets for Game 1 and Game 7, and not Game 6. Game 6, I was at a friend's house watching it. But it was exciting to be there for Game 7 and watch them win.
Right.
But that's my World Series stories.
Great.
That's awesome. So follow Lou over at #BaseballAndTheLaws, the best way to search Twitter for him. And Lou, we appreciate you being on today. We don't want to take up your whole afternoon, but thanks for talking baseball with us, and would love to have you back at another show.
Anytime you want, we'll talk about. I'll tell you my Ed Kranepool story, and we'll talk more baseball and law. And let's hope everybody stays safe. We be safe, and more important than having a baseball season this year is that our families are safe. That's the most important thing. And
you stay healthy yourself, Ed. Lou.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
gentlemen.
You very much. Have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Great gentleman there, Mr. Lou Schiff, a award winner for SABR, author, researcher, many hats he wears. Obviously, sort of like a Ben Franklin of baseball. He's an instructor, teacher.
Yeah.
I love that.
Terrific guest, too, Rich. Really got some great stories and knows the lore. Wish we had a few more time. About to have him on again, though. I'm curious still about the whole minor league contraction thing.
I know we wanted to get to that, and we will on another edition. Yeah, he's always great and gracious to come on our show like this, and I've had him on another show for Phillies Talk. So absolutely, he's aces, and I'm sure he'll make some time to talk with us.
Yeah, and. All right, Rich. Well, that was terrific again. He was a terrific guest, and we'll have to have him on to talk a little minor league baseball maybe the next time. And any other thing you floating your boat there, Rich?
Well, as you said, we're just taking it day by day. As we wake up the next day, we have new news about plans for the MLB. Nothing set in stone yet, so I'm just waiting on that. We have some words that ESPN was looking to broadcast, I believe, either the Taiwan Baseball League or the Korean Baseball League. Apparently, they're still going to be after that as well to maybe tide us over to the end of June. So looking forward to whatever comes down our way baseball-wise is what I'm trying to do.
And that Korean League's a little interesting because they actually have robot fans and robot cheerleaders, I think. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
But I wonder if we'll see anything like that. You think they'll put cardboard cutouts in the seats maybe and play, crowd noise?
I would think so. Like Lou just said, it's going to be a little boring if there's no organ music, some piped in, rah, rah, rah type of stuff. It's going to be beyond boring. So hopefully they'll have that sorted out as well to give at least the players a feeling that, hey, this is a game that matters, and that's all part of it. So I don't believe they had that at the Orioles makeup game that Lou was talking about, though. I believe it was very silent from what I remember reading from a long time ago, 5 years ago or so.
Yeah.
That was a fast 5 years, by the way.
It certainly was. It gets fast when you, you get a little bit older.
We went down to Baltimore around that time because they had super cheap room rates down there, of course, with the riots going on in there. So we had to look over our shoulder a little bit. But I do remember going down to Baltimore, had a wonderful time, and I remember looking up at the helicopter circling around. So another memory there. But
the thing
it was great.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying it was great to recall it, and it's all part of baseball.
Yeah, that's for sure. I remember the guy going around the bases and like waving to the crowd or tipping his hat, and there's nobody there. I mean, that was great. Great fun, and I think I could see the novelty of it. It would probably be a lot of fun for the guys the first couple of games, but I think after a while it would be monotonous. It would just get tiresome after a while because they like the energy to feed off the energy of the crowd, and but we'll see what happens. If that's the only way they can play, and more importantly, if that's the only way they can get paid, I'm sure they'll accept that slight inconvenience to their season.
And one more note for our listeners, check out the baseballtalkradio.com website. It's a collection of over 40 independent baseball talk shows. I'm doing some work on it. Presently, I'm trying to rebuild some of the pages with updates, but we do have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week player there. You can hear some of the shows play. You can even listen to them on the road. Stream them, so check that out as well. If you want to send Gary an email, it's Gary@baseballtalkradio.com or myself, Rich@baseballtalkradio.com, and we'd love to read your comments.
Certainly would, and if you'd like to be a part of the show, support the show, go to anchor.fm/baseballtalkradio show, and you can leave a little donation right there, or check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/the Baseball Talk Radio Show, and become a Patreon member there. And I think we're working on some things to make that a little bit more enticing as we sit here in quarantine, Rich. So another week, another great show, another terrific guest. Hope everybody enjoyed it. And I guess we'll see you next time.